What up, guys? So today I have a question from Mike, and it's basically a two-part question. Number one, he wants to know, why do wrist locks get considered so dirty, right? Like, why is it that when you start going for wrist locks, someone's like, oh, we're doing prison rules, right? Come to think of it, I don't know why wrist locks got called prison rules. And then the second part of the question is that he says he's wondering how he can become a better wrist locker. He's a purple belt, and he feels like, you know, wrist locks would be kind of a nice little thing to add into the mix. And he's watched some of my videos, and he knows I'm a dirty wrist locker to the core, which I am. And so, yeah, to answer your question, Mike, by the way, I don't know why wrist locks are considered dirty, why it's prison rules. My thought of it intuitively is that it's one of those things where, you know, it's probably the same thing that happened with leg locks back in the day. Leg locks used to be kind of considered dirty because the idea was that, like, my upper body's free. Like, if you think about humans, right, we feel like we're someone back here in our noggin driving around this, like, flesh and bone, like, meat suit. And so we feel like we're this thing here. So, like, when this is getting smashed here, you sort of feel like I'm stuck. But then if someone just has your arm out to the side, the rest of your body's free, you feel like, man, that was kind of cheap. You weren't really pinning me. You weren't dominating position. You just got my little wrist and you torqued it really quickly. And that was how we used to look at leg locks, right? Someone would be on your leg, but the rest of your body's free. And so you would look at it. I think that's why we call it dirty. But that said, I love wrist locks, and I don't think they're dirty at all. I think it's a great move, and it's very smart, and I'll show you why it's smart. And I'll give you about 3 ideas that I think would help you become a better wrist locker. I have some wrist lock techniques on the channel, but these 3 sort of strategies, concepts will help you become a wrist locker and know when to look for them and how to secure them. All right, guys, so I'm gonna show you from the feet the principles that we're gonna be putting into play, and then afterwards I'll show you how to hit them on the ground from a few different positions. By the way, guys, we're gonna focus on the cow hand and the gooseneck, right? Those are gonna be the 2 wrist locks. There is a twisting wrist lock that we can do that involves this. Like, a lot of times they grab here, we go over top. I don't like that one as much for training purposes because you have to go very fast with it. You don't really have the ability to go nice and slow and sort of like look at them and, you know, basically say, I got you. So that, okay, guys, number 1 is that we're gonna be looking to either have their hand or their wrist making contact with my body. I'll talk about when it can be flipped, or I wanna have control of this in some way, okay? So for instance, like right here, a lot of times I look for the person to be pushing their wrist or their palm to me. Now you might be saying to yourself, Chewy, why would they do this? I don't know, people just do it. If you become a wrist locker, you will find this all the time. Either sometimes we have this with a hand, and I'll talk about when you can kind of flip the elbow principle I'm gonna talk about in a second, but sometimes you'll find that people will let the wrist go limp, or in some cases, during positions, the person's pulling their arm out and their wrist gets caught like this for a second, and we can go into it, okay? So we either wanna feel for their hand or their wrist touching our body somewhere, typically around our core, up in here somewhere. Okay, and I'll show you a couple examples of that. If not, I want to have control of it with my hand. Now, here's sort of the second principle to it that kind of goes back and forth. These 2 are kind of interchangeable. So I want to be able to have control of the elbow either with my body or with my hand. So we'll talk about the hand in a second, and then this would flip it. So basically, these are our 2 control points when we're looking for the gooseneck or the cow hand, right? Cow hand's really hard to do like this, so most of the time this is a gooseneck type thing. But from here, we're looking to control these 2 points. If I can control these 2 points, usually can do a pretty good wrist lock. And then the third part of it is that when we go for the wrist lock, we're trying to add pressure at an angle. So if you look at his wrist here, okay? I don't want to put pressure straight down on the wrist. That's not going to help me, right? What we're trying to do is go over top to try to get his hand to touch his form. Now, word of caution with the gooseneck. Some people are incredibly flexible, and you can push their hand down. Hayden's not quite that flexible, but you will get people that will literally be able to touch their form. And in some cases, that's just them. And again, you can just talk to them. And if you say, hey, you know, does your wrist hurt? And they're not even like looking at you funny, they just have good flexibility. However, if their wrist is like cracking and popping, again, you should probably let go and tell them to tap out and stop being an idiot, right? But here, we're getting in there and we go for this. Cow hand, usually you can catch pretty much anybody in that one, okay? But again, we're exchanging in these 2 places. Now in the cow hand, same thing. I don't want to put pressure straight into it because then that's just going to go into the bone here and stacks in. We want to sort of push here and then slide outward, okay? So let's look at a couple positions where we could hit this and put those principles into the mix. All right, guys, so check this one. Really cool from guard. If the guy's hand touches on the side, which is pretty darn common, anywhere in this part of my body, right here, I can go for this cow hand. So the way that it works is his hand just touched me, right? So that's number 1, I got that. Now I have to secure the back of the arm here. And the way that we can do this, we can pull in, and once the arm is bent, I can grab onto the back of the elbow. Now to add the pressure at an angle, I turn my body to the side, and there we go, right? So again, those principles in hand, back the elbow, cut the angle to add the pressure at an angle. One of my favorites from half guard, I've hit this one a bunch when I was a young black belt. So we get in here, I go behind the back of the elbow. So like a lot of times if I'm in here passing, this hand can go right behind the back of the elbow, right? And then from here, all I've got to do now is secure the arm and then put pressure. We're here, back of the elbow here, bang. One last one. And again, each one of these guys is on the channel already in its entirety, so if you guys want to look these up, you can look at the links or whatever down below or in the thing, and we'll clip the video to it. So from here, if I get into a position here, like maybe I come in a side control, if I feel their arm anywhere along my collarbone area into my shoulder, my chest, it's there. So like a lot of times I've caught people where they're letting their hands right here and then bang, just like that. You know, a lot of times you pull down into it. Now again, he's now touching my chest. I secure the elbow, or I can even let the ground secure the elbow, and I get up over top and put pressure, right? And again, notice what I'm doing. I'm not going straight into it. I'm reaching over and going down. So to answer your question about how to become a dirty wrist locker, that's the things that I'm looking for. Those are like sort of the 3 key points. I'm sure there's all kinds of other details that you could go into with a wrist lock, and maybe I'll have more to share with you later on. But those are the 3 biggies, right? Do I have control of these 2 points? Do I have the ability to add pressure to these 2 points? And I mean, that's pretty much it, right? That's what I'm looking for with wrist locks. And if you start to look for those things, you start to get very in tune with them. And a lot of times if you watch people get caught with wrist locks, it's very fast a lot of times. It's like their hand was sliding and then it's like the person just moves and sort of conforms their body around that part of their hand. And that's it, that's a wrist lock, you know? And a lot of times people don't even have time to tap. It's like, tap, tap, tap. They'll have to verbally tap, right? So just a couple ideas to share with you. Hopefully that helps you with your wrist locks. Talk to you guys next time. Come to think of it, I don't know why they call it prison rules. Let's call someone from prison and ask them.
Hello?
Why wrist locks got called prison rules.
Self-destruct sequence initiated. You lose.